So this is the future of film photography. So we all knew eventually that film photography would have to come to an end, whether it be the fact that film was not being manufactured anymore, or just all the photography and camera equipment available would eventually just break down and become useless. And since they're not being produced anymore and parts are becoming more and more scarce, it was going to be inevitable that these type of things become almost impossible to find and use. That's been the case until just recently. Kodak has of course been hiring lab technicians, and in doing so, they decided to increase their prices again and again. Leica has just re-released a film camera as well. And then of course, Pentax has come out and said that in 2023, they're going to be working on and hopefully releasing a new film camera as well. So we are making strides and things are coming back around again. But what about all the other cameras? What about all the cameras that are no longer being produced? The companies that are no longer in existence, the Rolleis, the Hasselblads, the Minoltas, the Nikons, Canons, all those old bodies and old tech and film camera equipment, it's no longer being made. There's no longer readily available parts. Parts definitely aren't being made anymore. They're becoming more and more scarce. There's fewer and fewer people to repair and work on these cameras. So eventually, it's inevitable that they become almost impossible to use and repair. So I was at a friend's house the other day getting a vinyl wrap for some drop boxes for the film lab we're going to put in some locations around South Florida, which we'll talk further about that in another video. And he had some 3D printers sitting off to the side for some stuff he used to do that he really isn't using anymore. And so in putting together this vinyl and stuff, he asked me if I wanted to use one of his 3D printers. Now 3D printing has been something that I've wanted to get into for quite a while. It's definitely not new, it's pretty well known now. But the barrier of entry has always been the obstacle for me. I just don't have the time to learn a 3D printer and how to work it, how to use the software, all that stuff. And then on top of that, use 360 Fusion or any of those other 3D modeling softwares to create something that I can then turn around and use and print on one of these printers. So the barrier for entry has always been something more than I've had time for or willingness to invest in however many hundreds or thousands of dollars into a 3D printer and learning it and figuring all that stuff out. But when he asked if I wanted to just use one of his, the barrier for entry, the cost of entry became zero. Now I say all that because the barrier of entry used to be much more difficult. The knowledge you needed to do these things used to be much more difficult, but it's progressively become easier and easier. And with that, of course, just like anything with cameras specifically, the tech and the quality of these 3D printers has become better and better. So I've been using his 3D printer for about a week and a half, and I have been running it day and night. I'll put something in to print when I go to bed, and then when I leave to go to work in the morning, I will start another print. And I have been thoroughly impressed with how easy it was for me to get started using this and the quality of the parts that I have been able to print with even just a basic entry-level printer and limited knowledge on the subject. So I'm in a few different repair and 3D printing groups for camera parts, etc., just to kind of see what people are doing and how they're using this as I try to get my feet wet and learn this process. And I will see even the older generation that has all the knowledge on these cameras, they are starting to realize and understand the value in these 3D printers and what they are capable of, and filling gaps with parts and things that you can no longer find that you can create from scratch with these printers that actually do a fairly decent job at solving problems. And of course, now you have resin printers, which are going to be, I think, a little bit more exact than PLA printers. But now you even have metal printers that are becoming more and more popular and well known. And I think the cost of entry and difficulty of entry on those is also going to drop like it has done for a lot of things. So even with my limited knowledge and capabilities, I have been able to use these parts that other people have created, and I'm very grateful that they have posted these for other people to use and print. I do highly recommend you tip these people on Thingiverse so that they continue to make parts. So I've even reached out to someone on Thingiverse who created an adapter about creating adapter for a specific lens that I have, because it's similar to the one he's done. And I've offered to pay him and kind of do that, and he seems interested, and hopefully we can work that out. I've printed lens caps. I can't tell you how many times I've bought lenses at thrift stores or elsewhere, and of course there's never a front or rear lens cap, so printing those has been great. I've printed adapters for lenses that I've wanted to use but didn't want to spend the $10, $20, $30 or even $100 to use these adapters on modern DSLRs. There's even adapters to modify batteries for the old Mercury ones you would find in your Spotmatics and other Minolta versions of cameras. I was able to print a lens hood for my Rollei 2.8. I printed an adapter for my Fuji to Mamiya 645 lens. I've even printed advanced levers for cameras to see how those hold up compared to regular ones. And this is all with an entry-level printer and entry-level software. And then you have people creating new tech to go with these old lenses, like this little adapter that lets you put a lens filter in front of your Olympus XA. So something I never would have thought of, and something that wasn't really possible on that body, now people have come around and created an interesting solution to use on that camera. So 3D printing, in my opinion, is what's going to save a lot of these old film cameras and a lot of these old parts and equipment that you can no longer find. As this tech gets better and better and the level of entry becomes easier and easier, even people like me or you are going to be able to repair or fix these old cameras or use these older lenses on modern cameras. So if you're into film photography and you want to be able to use these kind of things and have access to this, I would highly recommend looking at getting a entry-level 3D printer. I think the one that I have you can find used for about $200 now, and I think the Ender 3 is probably the most popular one that you can modify a lot and get a lot of capabilities out of at a very low entry-level price. And once you have that, you're gonna save a lot of money to use your lenses further, to create interesting new adapters and such to improve these film cameras and use them in different ways that we couldn't before. So that is why I think 3D printing is gonna be one of the things that saves film photography.